On January 30th, 2014, a naked man stumbled onto a beach on a tiny island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. He was clutching a knife and screaming in Spanish. His hair was matted. His skin was burned. His eyes were hollow. A local couple found him. They thought he was insane. He kept pointing at the ocean and saying something they couldn't understand. When they finally got a translator, the story he told was so impossible that newspapers around the world ran headlines questioning if it was true. He said his name was Jose Salvador Alvarenga. He said he'd been fishing off the coast of Mexico. And then he said the thing that made everyone stop: he'd been drifting across the Pacific for 438 days. Over 14 months. In an open fiberglass boat. With no sails, no engine, no radio. Surviving on raw birds, turtles, and his own urine. It was the longest known solo survival at sea in human history. But the question everyone asked was, how? And what happened to the other man who was with him? Jose Alvarenga was born in El Salvador around 1975. He moved to Mexico in 2002 and worked as a fisherman on the Pacific coast. He was known as Cirillo to the locals, and he was good at his job. On November 17, 2012, he got ready for a routine fishing trip. A 30-hour shift. He planned to catch sharks, marlin, maybe sailfish. His usual partner couldn't make it, so he asked another fisherman, a 24-year-old named Ezequiel Córdoba. They'd never worked together before. They barely knew each other. The boat was a 7-meter fiberglass skiff. No cabin, no roof, no protection from the elements. Just a hull, an outboard motor, and a large cooler for keeping fish. They'd been on the water for a few hours when the weather changed. The sky turned dark. The wind picked up. Then the storm hit. It lasted 5 days. The waves were massive. The skiff was tossed around like a toy. The outboard motor was ripped off its mount and nearly lost overboard. Their radio, their only way to call for help, was damaged by saltwater. Alvarenga managed to get through to his boss on the radio before the battery died. "We're in trouble. We're drifting. Send help." The boss tried. He organized a search party. But the storm was too intense, the fog too thick. After 2 days, they gave up. They assumed both men were dead. But the skiff didn't sink. It kept drifting. West. Away from Mexico. Into the vast emptiness of the Pacific Ocean. The men had caught nearly 500 kilograms of fish before the storm. They threw it overboard to lighten the boat and keep it from capsizing. By the time the storm passed, they had nothing. No food. No way to steer. No way to call for help. Just an open fiberglass shell, drifting toward the horizon. At first, they waited. They expected rescuers to find them. Days passed. Then weeks. The coast of Mexico faded from view. Eventually there was nothing but water in every direction. Alvarenga had one advantage: he was a fisherman. He knew how to catch things with his bare hands. He tangled his fingers in the water until a small fish swam close enough to grab. Then he ate it raw. He learned to catch birds that landed on the boat. He'd wait until they slept, then grab them by the legs. He pulled turtles from the water. Raw meat. That was their diet. Raw turtle meat, raw bird meat, raw fish. When it rained, they collected water in empty bottles. When it didn't, they drank turtle blood. When even the blood was gone, they drank their own urine. Córdoba couldn't handle it. He was younger. He wasn't a fisherman. He got sick from the raw food. Diarrhea. Fever. He stopped eating. He told Alvarenga he just wanted to die. About 4 months in, month 4 of what would become 14, Córdoba stopped eating completely. Alvarenga tried to force him. He refused. He lay in the bottom of the skiff and stared at the sky. He died sometime in the early months of 2013. Alvarenga was alone. He had to make a choice. If he threw the body overboard, he'd be condemning a friend, a person he'd shared this nightmare with, to the ocean. If he kept it, he risked losing his mind. He kept the body on the boat for 6 days. He talked to it. He told Córdoba about his life, his daughter, his parents. He asked the corpse for advice. Then, on the 7th day, he lowered the body into the water. He watched it sink into the darkness. And he said a prayer. Then he sat back in the skiff and waited to die. But he didn't die. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Alvarenga stopped marking time in days, he marked it in lunar cycles. He counted 15 full moons from the day they left Mexico. That's how he knew he'd been out there for more than a year. The skiff became its own world. A floating island 7 meters long, drifting at the mercy of the currents. Alvarenga learned to live in it. He built a makeshift shelter from the fiberglass shards and debris that floated by. He rigged a system to catch rainwater. He trained himself to sleep sitting up, always alert, always ready to snatch a bird or a fish. He saw container ships. Dozens of them. Giant vessels passing within a few kilometers. He waved. He screamed. He lit fires on the boat. Nobody saw him. The ships moved on, silent and indifferent, their crews unaware that a man was watching them from a tiny skiff, praying for rescue. He thought about his daughter. He thought about his parents back in El Salvador. He hadn't spoken to them in 8 years. They assumed he was dead. He thought about dying, considered it seriously. He says he spent 4 days contemplating suicide. But his faith stopped him. He believed God had kept him alive for a reason, and dying by his own hand would be a rejection of that gift. So he kept going. One day at a time. One bird at a time. One lunar cycle at a time. And then, after 15 moons, he saw something on the horizon. January 30th, 2014. 15 months and 13 days after leaving Mexico. Alvarenga spotted land. Not a continent, a tiny speck of an island, barely visible against the blue. Eben Atoll, in the Marshall Islands. He drifted over 10,000 kilometers across the Pacific. He swam to shore. He crawled onto the beach. He was wearing nothing but tattered shorts. He was clutching a knife. 2 locals found him, Emi Libigmito and Russell Likidrick. They saw a naked, wild-eyed man screaming in Spanish on their beach. They brought him to their home. They gave him water. They called the authorities. When the Marshall Islands government officials arrived, they were skeptical. A man surviving 438 days at sea? In a 7-meter open skiff? It sounded like a hoax. But the evidence checked out. Alvarenga knew details about the fishing village in Mexico that only a local would know. The boat's owner confirmed the boat was his. The official report from the Chiapas Rescue Services confirmed 2 fishermen had gone missing on November 17, 2012. Oceanographers ran computer models of the sea currents. The models showed that a boat departing from the Mexican coast in November 2012 would end up within 190 kilometers, exactly where Alvarenga landed. The polygraph test came back clean. He was telling the truth. Alvarenga spent 11 days in the hospital. He was severely anemic. His blood pressure was dangerously low. He had parasites in his liver from eating raw meat. He was terrified of water, couldn't shower, couldn't even look at the ocean without trembling. But he survived. When he finally returned to El Salvador, he was a different person. He couldn't sleep indoors. He had spent 438 days exposed to the sky, and 4 walls made him feel trapped. He slept in a hammock in the yard. He couldn't eat cooked food at first. His body had forgotten how to process it. A journalist named Jonathan Franklin interviewed Alvarenga for months and wrote a book called 438 Days, an extraordinary true story of survival at sea. It documents every detail of the ordeal, the storms, the deaths, the hallucinations, the rescue. But the story took a darker turn. Ezequiel Córdoba's family sued Alvarenga for $1 million. They accused him of cannibalism, claimed he survived by eating Córdoba's body. Alvarenga's lawyer denied it. The polygraph didn't flag it. There was no evidence. The case was eventually dropped. Alvarenga is still alive. He lives in El Salvador. He doesn't fish anymore. When interviewers ask him what he learned from 438 days at sea, he usually says the same thing. I learned that God exists. I learned that the human body can survive more than you think. And I learned that there is always hope, even when there is nothing else. Alvarenga's story holds a record, the longest known solo survival at sea in history. No one has ever survived alone in an open boat for longer. Think about that. 14 months. 15 full moons. 10,000 kilometers. Raw birds and turtle blood. A dead companion. Container ships passing in the night. And yet here he is. Alive. Back on land. Talking about it. The ocean took everything from him, his boat, his friend, his sanity. But it couldn't take his will to live. That's what makes this story unforgettable. It's not about the suffering. It's about the choice to keep going when every cell in your body is telling you to stop.